Hello guys, welcome to this channel, and today it's one of my biggest videos in a while. We're ranking all the Batman villains. And if you want to know which ones I'm including and which ones I'm not including, just go check out the description below. Because it's a bit of an odd logic, and I didn't really know which ones to include and which ones not. So there's some villains you might not recognize that will be in there. And I feel like if I was including Harley Quinn and Jared Leto's Joker, I feel like it only makes sense to include Joaquin Phoenix as Joker. And he sort of was a villain to Bruce Wayne. So, without further ado, I guess, I think we can just get into it. We can check out my Batman playlist, go check out my DC playlist, go check out my Scream playlist, go check out all of them. So, enjoy the video. Thanks for watching. Stay until the end if you want. And let's get started. Coming in last place is going to be Bane from Batman and Robin. I think he could move a spot or two up if he wasn't called Bane. I think he just could have been called something random, maybe something not from the comics. But the fact that they called this guy Bane, and who's probably the most iconic Batman villain from the 90s. I never really read the Nightfall comics, but they turned him into this bumbling buffoon who is completely dumb but doesn't know anything practically. Just repeats everything that Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze says, practically. And then he turns this random skinny guy into this giant bumbling buffoon, essentially, and then who is completely stupid, and he doesn't say anything, has none of the comic book roots that Bane has, none of the intelligence that Bane has. It's just unforgivable. That's why he has to come in last place.
Mother, millennia in exile, searching. At last, you call me home.
Me number 33, Steppenwolf from Justice League. Where to even begin with this character? There's some very creepy things about this guy, not even in a good way. Like, he says the mother so many times through the movie, instead of relating to his actual roots and origins that relate to Darkseid, which is perfectly explained in Zack Snyder's Justice League. And the thing with this guy, he's literally just like a video game character. That's what he looks like. Like, I can't get my head around that.
I know, Mother. You've waited too long for the unity. I know, but you will feed.
Literally, you have this guy who should be this pretty menacing and big threat for the Justice League, which he kind of is, but like, he just looks just terrible. And even his plan doesn't really kind of make a lot of sense throughout the movie. I mean, he has to get all these mother boxes, and it's not really explained at all, sort of. And then, like, the way it all plays out is just odd. I think most of the thing that makes this villain terrible is really just the movie itself. Like, what were they doing here? Like, I think he's actually a worse villain than Bane is, but because they called the Bane and Batman and Robin, that makes it so much worse. I don't know. I don't like this villain. Terrible. Pretty much just as bad as Bane from Batman and Robin. Just a little bit better because it doesn't feel like a disgrace to the comics.
Kill him. I want him to feel the heat. Feel the fire of 12 million souls. You failed.
Coming in number 32 is going to be Talia Al Ghul. This is a big misstep from Nolan, I guess, who's known for making a lot of these kind of things work so well. Like, I think stuff like in like movies like Memento, where they have sort of this third act twist, or Prestige, he does it so well. And then in this, I'm like, why? Why would you do that? You had Bane, who was such a great villain, and it did not need to be out to be made this sort of this sidekick. And then you bring in Talia Al Ghul, who, instead of being this compelling twist, I'm like, oh yeah, it was her. Instead, it just, all it did was just undermine Bane, and that's just kind of disappointing, to be honest. And for a movie that I actually really like with The Dark Knight Rises, Talia Al Ghul is a huge misstep, and probably even though that movie is filled with a ton of plot contrivances and plot conveniences, they don't bother me that much. This does, and don't even get me started on the death scene.
Hi there.
And you are...
Poison Ivy.
Coming in number 31 is going to be Poison Ivy. I don't even know where to begin here. to be honest. Uma Thurman, I just don't think she was not bad casting. Same with Tommy Lee Jones, is gonna come up here soon. I think she could have been a great version of Poison Ivy in a different movie, in a much better movie, a much more serious movie. But here, like, she's just so over the top. I don't even really think she fits this movie, because I don't think, like, I wouldn't really call her goofy. I would just call her very over the top, which might be an overstatement to some, I guess. And it makes for some very weird scene, like the back credit card scene, which I brought up a bunch of times. I'll see so many puns with her, like the one with Robin. And then you have literally Batman and Robin fighting over Poison Ivy. It's just it makes for so many weird things. She's not menacing at all. As menacing as she gets is just the stuff with those love potions or whatever. And then like the way she kills people, it's just the way it's all played out is so over the top, and you can't take anything seriously. Pretty much like the rest of the movie.
You're counting on the winged Avenger to deliver you from evil, aren't you, my friend?
Are you gonna kill me?
Maybe, maybe not. You could say we're of two minds on the subject.
Coming in number 30 is going to be Tommy Lee Jones' Two-Face. If I'm going to be honest, he was not the right guy to play this version of Two-Face. Like, why would you get Tommy Lee Jones to play this version of Two-Face? Just like Uma Thurman, I think he could have done a great version of Harvey Dent Two-Face, or Harvey Two-Face in a different Batman movie, much more serious Batman movie, as I said. But here, he just feels like he's trying to play a version of Jack Nicholson's Joker, which doesn't work, and he's not designed to be a very loud personality. Because of that, it just feels like he's in competition with Jim Carrey's Riddler. And when you have someone like Jim Carrey on there, it's very hard to steal the show from him, and he doesn't, so it just kind of falls flat, if I'm going to be honest. I just don't think he was the right guy to play this version of Two-Face. Very goofy, very cartoonish, even more so than the Riddler, and none of it works. Like, none of it. I think he flips that coin like crazy, if I'm going to be honest. So, yeah, don't care for this one.
What the hell is going on?
The plan is proceeding as expected.
Oh, really? Do I look like I'm running Wayne Enterprises right now?
Coming in number 29 is going to be John Daggett from The Dark Knight Rises. Overall, as much as I do like Ben Mendelsohn in this role, as well as pretty much everything else I've seen him in, he's just kind of playing a forgettable character here, especially when you're in the same movie with Bane, and, like, you can't really do anything about that. He literally gets undermined by Bane, especially because he literally just gets killed by Bane in, like, one scene. So, like, it's an okay character, kind of forgettable. I don't, like, hate this character or anything. I think he's fine, I guess. But, like, when you're in the same movie as Tom Hardy's Bane, it's tough to really compete with him.
Batman's not only going to pick my crime, he is going to provide me with a blueprint as to how I should pull it off.
Penguin, are you sure you haven't gone stir crazy?
My number 28 is going to be Penguin from Batman 66. It's whatever. It's the 60s Batman villains. I think all of them are pretty close on this list. Yeah, they're all pretty close for the most part. A couple of them I have a bit higher up, but they're all in, like, a mid-range, essentially. They're all pretty close. This is kind of easily my least favorite because I'm just not a big fan of the Penguin from the comics, if I'm going to be honest. And overall, like, you have this version of the Penguin who's just like quack at some points. It's just such a weird gesture in my opinion. And overall, like, I don't like dislike this character or pretty much any other character from this movie. But again, it's just like not my version of the Penguin. My version of the Penguin would be Colin Farrell or even Danny DeVito. So, like, yeah, it's just an okay version of the Penguin. But I don't, like, hate this villain or anything.
The house treats luck like an insult.
Good luck for one is always his brother's misfortune.
Смеется, как кто смеется последний.
Number 27 is going to be Anatoly Knizia from Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. The thing with this character is he's fine. Like, you might be thinking, who is this guy? He's the guy that held Martha Kent captive in the warehouse fight. He's also in a bunch of other sequences. He's very prominent throughout the movie. And overall, I actually think he's a perfectly fine enough villain. He's okay, I guess. He's not, like, a great villain or anything. But, like, he works in the movie. And I think overall, he makes for a nice adversary to Batman. And overall, I think all those elements put together, he's an okay enough villain.
Come, my comic cohorts in crime! Come, Oliver!
Coming number 26 is going to be Cezar Romero's Joker from the 60s Batman movie. Overall, He's kind of similar to Burgess Meredith's Penguin. Very forgettable, kind of very campy, obviously, because of the 60s. I'm not going to get started on the mustache thing, that it's completely noticeable. And it just doesn't really work as a version of the Joker, at least in my opinion, when you're used to something like Heath Ledger's Joker, especially, or even Jack Nicholson's Joker. Like, it's just nothing compared to this. It's so tame, very, very just... I don't really care for this version of the Joker all that much. I mean, he's not bad or anything. He's just easily my least favorite version of the Joker.
The game's up, Riddler. As the duly deputized agent of the law, I place you under arrest for armed robbery.
Snap on the bat cuffs.
You've got me, Batman.
Coming in number 25 is Frank Gorshon's Riddler. Just like Cezar Romero's Joker, not all that innovative version of the Riddler, or at least this version of the Riddler. And just the Riddlers are so over the top, but they're kind of fun at the same time. But overall, just as like Cezar Romero's Joker, also kind of forgettable. But I feel like I think because of the very over the top Riddlers, I would push this one just ahead, just a tiny bit, but also very campy. Coming number 24 is going to be Doomsday from Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. I mean, he serves his purpose as a big hulking monster for a boss fight, and as Doomsday is Superman's Doomsday. I think all of those elements work pretty well together, but he's just designed for that, and because of that, it doesn't make for a very compelling villain. He doesn't talk at all, obviously, and so, like, I mean, he's fine. He's serviceable for what he needs to do, and no more than that.
My dad always said that Kentucky Mash was the secret to health. This was his room.
Coming number 23 is going to be Lex Luthor from Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. There are some good things about this. I think his overall master plan in trying to get Zod's body to create Doomsday, I actually think that those elements together work pretty nicely. Everything else, from his characterization to all of the very weird things that he does, like pushing Jolly Ranchers into people's mouth or peeing in a jar, there's just so many weird things in it, all like the like Jesse Eisenberg isms that really don't work. And overall, this version of Lex Luthor, it could have been great, but like, and I see what they were sort of trying to do, but just why would you do this? Like, of all things, just why? Like, if this was a version of maybe some sort of other villain, it could have been just fine, but for Lex freaking Luthor, why would you do this? Also, I'm not very used to Gene Hackman's version of Lex Luthor because I'm a big fan of Superman the movie and I grew up with it. So and I just got used to that. And even though it's clearly not a real estate whole thing and his real estate schemes, which that I'm okay with, obviously, but I think in his master plan is perfectly fine, but just the characterization of this Lex Luthor, it just doesn't work. It's as simple as that. I can sort of understand if you like this.
I don't.
Holy heartbreak! Miss Kitka!
I mean, number 22, going back to the 60s villains, it's going to be Lee Meriwether's Catwoman from, Batman 66. Okay, I think this version of the Catwoman, I think she's perfectly fine. She's serviceable for what she needs to. She gets a bit more to do compared to the other three villains. She gets this whole little side plot with being Miss Kitka. At the same time, she's just very, not as campy as the other villains, but still kind of over the top. But I think she works perfectly fine in the film, and I think she's okay.
Like an adopted son. Isn't that right? Batman.
Coming number 21 is going to be Jared Leto's Joker. I think he's okay as the Joker, but the problem is they just do some very weird things, from all the tattoos to the very, weird things. I don't know. It looks kind of ridiculous, if I'm going to be honest. Even when they have that little cameo in Zack Snyder's Justice League, it doesn't do anything to really raise him higher, because I still think it's just kind of a weird version of the Joker that still doesn't quite work. So I'd be interested to see what else they do with him, if they do anything with him. But for now, just such a weird version of the Joker. They do some very odd things with him. It's sort of like Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, although not quite as weird, though. So overall, just not that good a version of the Joker, if I'm going to be honest. Easily my least favorite, other than Cezar Romero.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age! Stay cool, bird boy.
Kicking out the top 20 is going to be Mr. Freeze. I'm a bit biased because I quite like Arnold Schwarzenegger, to be honest. And unlike Uma Thurman and Tommy Lee Jones, or even Jim Carrey to an extent, I think he actually was the right casting to play this very over-the-top, puntacular version of Mr. Freeze.
Let's kick some ice.
And I actually don't think he does a bad job. I think he gives a pretty good performance. Problem is, it's not really a version of the character that we really ever wanted. I mean, from all the puns to some of the weird things that they do, as well as his plan for the world, and teaming up with Poison Ivy, none of it all works. So, pretty much the main reason why I don't really like him is mostly because of the movie that he's in. At the same time, I do love Arnold Schwarzenegger, probably my favorite actor of all time, and been since some of my favorite movies of all time, like Terminator 2, for example, or even The Terminator, Predator, True Lies. I also really like Total Recall. I really like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but the character itself, not good.
I'm pushing this power plant now because it'll cost more later. $1 million saved is $1 million earned. I commissioned this report. I thought you might want to take a look at it.
Coming in number 19 is going to be Max Schreck from Batman Returns. I mean, I think the reason why this character is this high is because of Christopher Walken. I freaking love the guy. And even in stuff like A View to a Kill, or not a very good movie, he's still great. And really, he's pretty much great in everything. He's not, I wouldn't call him a standout. I'd say both Danny DeVito and Michelle Phifer are more standout-like in this movie, at least. And overall, I still think the character is just alright, in my opinion. He's fine, just kind of the normal businessman, that very one-note character. And I think the most interesting thing about him is that he's the guy that set Selena Kyle off on her Catwoman roots, I guess. And overall, I think Christopher Walken does a great job because he's Christopher Walken. And overall, I do like the guy. I quite like the guy, I guess. But the overall character, it's okay, I guess.
Who the hell are you? Just a friend. But you can call me the Riddler.
Coming number 18 is going to be Jim Carrey's Riddler from Batman Forever. Jim Carrey himself, I think is actually a lot of fun as the Riddler overall. But the problem is, it's not really the Riddler, it's just Jim Carrey. And overall, I do quite like him because he's just so much fun. Plays it so overblown, so over the top, just like Jim Carrey would in any of his other movies. Totally steals the show from everyone, whether it's Val Kilmer or Tommy Lee Jones. And overall, I think he does a good enough job in the role. I think he's just fine. But the problem is, it's not the Riddler, it's just Jim Carrey. I mean, for some people that's okay, including myself, I guess, but it just makes for a very weird villain overall. And overall, I don't think he was the right guy to play the Riddler, to be honest. I mean, he's sort of the right guy in, like, Joel Schumacher's practically live-action cartoon here, but as in general, just no. And I think the overall characterization, like, they don't develop the technology thing enough. His motivation for turning into the Riddler just doesn't quite work. Well, it does not quite work. It just doesn't work. And, like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, he'd have this diss for Bruce Wayne for turning down his deal for pretty logical reasons. So, overall, just a very odd character overall.
You could have just sent a thank you note.
I didn't come here to thank you. I came here to show you that not everyone at Gotham's afraid of you.
Only those who know me, kid.
Coming number 17 is going to be Falcone from Batman Begins. As sort of Batman's origin story, I actually quite like him. And overall, I think he's actually quite a pretty good mob character. He's my favorite one. I didn't include Maroni on this list because I just kind of forgot to put him on this list, and it's too late now. So, yeah, he wouldn't have placed high anyways. So, overall, I quite like Falcone overall in Batman Begins, playing as this mob guy who kind of terrorizes the city and who is just kind of a pretty big menace to the city in general. And I think the things I like about him, the character himself, he's fine. But I think the thing I like about it, and as sort of the signal for Batman's origin story, as he's becoming Batman, this pretty much Falcone is the first person that Batman has to take down to get to all of the other stuff, essentially. So I think all of that stuff combined, I think, makes for a pretty good villain.
Of course, sometimes exceptions have to be made. Good night, Mr. Wayne.
Coming number 16 is going to be Anne Hathaway's Catwoman from The Dark Knight Rises. There's a bunch of missteps with this character. Like, the whole little motivation for stealing from the stuff from Bruce Wayne just doesn't work, if I'm going to be honest. We're trying to her to get this clean slate technology. I don't think any of that really works, if I'm going to be honest. And her little plot line with Bruce Wayne, it's alright, I guess. And I mean, she's okay. I think Anne Hathaway does a perfectly fine job in it, but I think the problem is when you have this movie which is already filled with a ton of stuff and pretty much feels like two movies, and kind of throw her into the mix, it just doesn't really quite work. So like as you're going along and everything's happening, just like she just kind of falls in the background, I guess, especially for her to be Bruce Wayne's happy ending, and especially after he's going off with Miranda Tate in the middle of the movie. Just none of it really works. So as good of a job as she does, I think she does a great job in the role. There's just a ton of missteps with this character.
My name is not Oswald. It's Penguin. I am not a human being. I am an animal. Cold-blooded.
Coming in number 15 is going to be the Penguin from Batman Returns. I mean, the thing with this character, I actually quite like him overall. Danny DeVito's great in the role, but the problem is, they just throw a bunch of weird stuff at him, like he's very horny at times. Like you have this whole plotline with the children, which never comes to fruition, because I think they had to cut it down, and then you have a bunch of stuff they had to rework in the end. But there's many plot lines involving him not being accepted by people. When they don't accept him, he turns against them. I think that stuff really works. And I think he does a great job in the role as this very Tim Burtonized version of the Penguin. He literally is a Penguin Man. He has 3 appendages, and I think like one of them, it's like a flipper. So like it's very weird that they have this Penguin Man, especially with the way it goes from the beginning and him living in the sewers. Some of it I actually quite like. A lot of it is just kind of weird, and I'm kind of teetering between the two, and I don't know which one outweighs the other. But overall, I think he gives a great performance. Very committed role where he was actually eating a live fish. I don't know how I feel about that, but whatever.
He's here. Who? The Batman.
Coming number 14 is going to be Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow from Batman Begins, and really the whole Dark Knight trilogy. He's a couple cameos in each movie. I find the one The Dark Knight Rises to be a lot of fun. The thing with this one is that I actually really like Cillian Murphy in the role. Very unique performance. At the same time, his little plot lines are a little odd with the way everything plays out, because he's only a villain for like 20 minutes of screen time, because he's kind of the transition point between Falcone and Ras Al Ghul, and makes for some very odd storytelling, if I'm going to be honest. At the same time, I think he's a lot of fun in the role. The way he ties into the League of Assassins and Ras Al Ghul, I think is a lot of fun, and I think he does a great job in the role in all 3 appearances. I think his mask is kind of creepy. It's not really all that creepy, but I think his little fear toxin plot line, I think actually works pretty nicely. And overall, I think it's a lot of fun as a villain. But I don't know, but I feel like he's just designed to be the transition point between point A to point B. So like they're starting to get from point B to point C essentially, because point A is the origin story, and they have to do something right in the middle, and they just put this villain in. So he feels a little tacked on. At the same time, I find Cillian Murphy to be a lot of fun in the role. Coming in number 13 is going to be Steppenwolf from Zack Snyder's Justice League. Overall, big improvement from Justice League. Looks actually like a imposing alien man-like thing. Does not look like a video game character. Actually gives him roots in storytelling involving Darkseid. Actually gives him a compelling plot. They do everything to improve him, and it makes for a pretty great villain. Very great threat for the Justice League. Overall, pretty menacing. Has some amazing action sequences, like the stuff with the Amazonians really works for me. And overall, I do really like this villain. His main plot line about just taking over the Earth with the mother boxes, maybe a bit generic. And as the Space Conqueror, that's what he's designed to do. But I think as his roots, where he has to conquer these infinite number of worlds to earn back Darkseid's trust, essentially, I think that stuff is pretty compelling. And even though he is a demon threat thing that we want the Justice League to stop, there's enough stuff that makes him compelling to where you can actually sort of believe in this character just a little bit. Coming number 12 is going to be Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. I know you guys are thinking, well, she's not really a villain, and I agree, but if I'm going to include Anne Hathaway's Catwoman, who's also not really a villain too, I might as well include Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. A little less villainous, but still. Overall, I think her mini little plot lines all work pretty nicely. Plotline involving this Annika character, I mean, though she still is stealing stuff, she has and then she's threatening to kill people, which are most of the villainous things she does. I didn't think her chemistry with Batman works. I think all of those elements put together makes for a pretty great version of Catwoman. And overall, they don't have any of the missteps like they did with Anne Hathaway in The Dark Knight Rises. And for being a movie that's relatively stuffed with a bunch of plot lines, she fits in just nicely. Her plotline with Falcone works pretty nicely. And overall, I think Zoe Kravitz did a pretty great job. Number 11 is going to be Catwoman's father, Carline Valcone from The Batman. Spoiler alert, by the way. Overall, I thought he was a great villain. John Turturro did a great job playing this character who's very creepy at times, especially interacting with other characters like Bruce Wayne or even his own daughter. And overall, I really like this guy. I think he's a lot of fun in the role. And overall, his twist of him, well, spoiler alert, him being the Rat, I think that worked really nicely as sort of an partial ending to the movie. And overall, I think he really worked as a villain. Well, we're obviously not going to see him again. And as the mobster, gangster character, overall, I think John Turturro does a great job. And very creepy, very conniving, kind of menacing at times. I think he did a great job.
You're going to destroy millions of lives.
Only a cynical man would call what these people have lives, Wayne. Crime, despair. This is not how man was supposed to live.
At the top 10, we have Ras Al Ghul. Overall, I quite like Liam Neeson in the role. This is even before he became the badass like he was known for in movies like Taken, which is a movie I do really like. I thought he's a great villain. He's a little philosophy involving Gotham, like it was beyond saving. I thought all those elements worked pretty nicely together. And it made for a nice, compelling finale. But I think the problem here is none of the fight scenes with Ras Al Ghul are all that good. Especially as you get to the end, they're all chopped to pieces. So really with all the League of Assassins or League of Shadows type stuff. And overall, I do quite like Liam Neeson. I don't know if the character as a whole was all that good, but I think Liam Neeson is great in the role. I think he does a fantastic job, and I kind of always forget about this guy, and because I'm more focused on, because this is sort of a Batman movie, and unlike Ledger and Hardy, I think Liam Neeson, unlike Joker and Bane, the character of Ras Al Ghul is designed to push up Batman, not outshine him like the other two villains do. Granted, I do love those other two villains, but still.
Two-Face, Harvey Two-Face. Why should I hide who I am?
Coming in number 9 is going to be Two-Face from The Dark Knight. I kind of feel bad for this guy because overall, I mean, not that he gets like flack for this role. It's just he's so outshined by Heath Ledger's Joker that like he just kind of falls into the background. Still, even when he is Harvey Dent, I think he does a great job. And I wish they didn't kill off this character because I would have liked to see him go throughout the mobs of Gotham City and sort of be the villain, because we don't get enough of that. We get more of the Harvey Dent side, which I still think is fine. And seeing his turn to madness and the way the Joker sort of corrupts him, I think all of that really works really well. And overall, I think it makes for a great villain. It's just he's so overshined by Ledger's Joker because he's such a scene stealer. And I still think he does a great job, but I don't think it's as good as Heath Ledger's Joker and a lot of other villains because he's so overshined. But still, great villain.
Can I help you?
Why, yes, you can. I'm here to report a terrible crime.
And what terrible crime is that?
Coming in number 8 is going to be Harley Quinn. I was debating whether to include her on the list because she's not really a villain, except in Suicide Squad, really. Because overall, I think I put her this high because she's just so much fun in the role. I think Margot Robbie just does a fantastic job of just becoming this character. It's not really an actress they do expect to play the character like this, but she just disappears into this role. Same with Colin Farrell's the Penguin, although quite literally. But overall, such a fun character. I wish we got a little bit more of a character arc from her. We get a bit of one from Birds of Prey and a little bit from the Suicide Squad. But I don't think it was enough for me to put her a bit higher, because I think the issue is that I don't think she has enough scenes and screen time I feel like, for me to put her any higher. I still really like her. I still think she's a very fun character. Very great in the 3 movies we've got her in. And overall, I think she's just a lot of fun here. So much fun in the role. And she's just such a scene stealer in any of the movies. And even though she's a bit weird in Suicide Squad, I still think she has a lot of fun in the role.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Take it easy, sweetheart. You looking for me? See you met the twins. Boy, I hear everything they say, ain't you?
Coming in at number 7 is going to be Colin Farrell's Penguin from The Batman. Overall, just such a scene stealer overall in this movie. A lot of fun, and I never thought a version of the Penguin would get this high on this list, but apparently we got it. So woohoo for progress. Overall, such a fun version of the Penguin, such a scene stealer. You got some great scenes like the car chase, all those little scenes in those nightclub sequences that you go to. Even his last scene before he gets taken away to jail, I think he just brings up some great lines overall. And I think Colin Farrell, you never expect him to do a role like this. But I think he, just like Margot Robbie, he disappears into this character. And the makeup job was just fantastic. Just a great version of the Penguin. Wish you got a little bit more screen time, and I'm pumped for what they do on that HBO Max show that's supposedly coming out. And overall, fantastic version of the Penguin. Coming in number 6 is going to be Paul Dano's The Riddler. Overall, I thought this is a fantastic version of the Riddler. This is the Riddler that we needed after Jim Carrey's very over-the-top version of the Riddler. We need something a bit more, still kind of over-the-top, but much more grounded, much more modern, obviously. And that's what Paul Dano exactly does. He makes the version of the Riddler that we practically needed after many years after Jim Carrey's Riddler, I guess. So overall, it does a fantastic job here. Even though he is a bit over the top at times, I think it works. Overall, you have some amazing scenes with him, like the scene where with the interrogation, all the riddles that he has Batman and Gotham City Police solving works so well. So many great scenes with him. My only issue is he didn't get enough scenes once he was unmasked, but I'm excited to see whatever they do with him in the next Batman movie.
Meow.
Kicking off the top 5 is going to be Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. I thought this version of the Catwoman is just fantastic. Michelle Pfeiffer gives a great performance. The suit is great. The motivation and how she turns into this person out for vengeance works really nicely, in my opinion. You also have Michelle Pfeiffer's performance, which she does just a fantastic job. The suit is great. Everything about this character is pretty great. I don't really have any issues. It's very Tim Burtonized, just like the Penguin and Max Schreck to an extent, but that's not really an issue. I really like this character. I think she's fun in the role. You have some of the whip crack scenes, which are great. She's the only one that actually got a whip. Lee Meriwhether might have. I don't know. So, and I think that little element was great. And overall, I just thought she was just a perfect version of Catwoman. More so a villain than an anti-hero like the other Catwomans are. I don't really think that's a problem here, and I think it makes for a great classic villain.
You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? What? I always ask that of all my prey. I just like the sound of it.
Coming in number 4 is going to be Jack Nicholson's Joker. Overall, I think this villain is quite great. I think Jack Nicholson does a great job. He has all the classic Joker stuff, from the chattering teeth to the little fake bang pistol. And overall, he has a pretty great rivalry with Bruce Wayne, Batman. Some great scenes. And overall, he just brings such a nice, fun, late 80s Tim Burton version of the Joker, essentially. And overall, I thought he was great. He steals the show. Well, unlike Heath Ledger, I feel like he's actually kind of supposed to because of the script, obviously. But I think he does a great job as this classic version of the Joker. The problem is, I never grew up with Batman 89, and I don't think he's my definitive Joker, obviously. And I think that's the only reason why that keeps him from being just a little bit higher. Overall, great version of the Joker. So many great moments. Very fun. Very menacing at times. And overall, I think not menacing, but very fun. He's always very fun. And overall, just a great version of the Joker. Coming number 3 is going to be Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. I think this Joker is just fantastic because you have this character of Arthur Fleck who traverses into madness, and you're compelled with him all the way through, and I think that's the magic of this movie overall, is that you're, no matter what how you're feeling, really, well, not, at least when you're in this movie, no matter what, you're sort of rooting for him, no matter what he does, but sometimes you're like, oh, he maybe took this the wrong way, and I think you want him to find his confidence, and it's just him traversing into madness as he finally, as the way you find out things as you go on about this character, it becomes more and more interesting, whether it's with his mother, Penny Fleck, or whether it's his relations with Thomas Wayne and stuff like that. Overall, I love this version of the character. It's great, and I can't wait to see if they do something else with Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker.
We take Gotham from the corrupt, rich, the oppressors of generations who have kept you down with myths of opportunity, and we give it back to you.
My runner-up is going to be Bane. I think overall, fantastic Batman villain. Tom Hardy is just fantastic in the role. Pretty menacing. I love the voice. And overall, just everything about the Nightfall storyline, and he's and everything about that works so well. And he's easily my favorite part about this movie. Even behind some of its, when you ever watch him on screen in this movie, it makes you ignore a lot of the complaints or a lot of the contrivances and plot conveniences throughout this movie, and I think that's the magic of this film. Problem here, I mean, I don't think he'd be number 1, but I think he'd be pretty close to number 1 if he wasn't undermined by Talia Al Ghul in that whole twist. So, and his death scene was pretty odd. Both villains got bad death scenes throughout this movie. And overall, I think he's a fantastic villain. So many great scenes, so many great things overall. And I think you have a person like Tom Hardy, who's not all that big, but through movie magic, they make him look like this big guy. And then he just kind of gets undermined, just pretty much just completely kind of ruins the character. And then from a plot standpoint. But it doesn't undermine the fact that Tom Hardy did a great job. He's a very imposing and menacing villain, and he really messed up Batman throughout a lot of this movie.
Come on, I want you to do it. I want you to do it. Come on, hit me. Come on, hit me. Come on, hit me.
But kind of easily coming into number 1. I knew he was going to be number 1 before I made this list, and that is Heath Ledger's Joker. Just what a performance from Heath Ledger overall. Just such a fantastic, iconic performance as the Joker. He does an amazing job. He can be creepy, he can be menacing, he can be really funny at times, he can do great magic tricks.
How about a magic trick?
With pencils.
I'm gonna make this pencil disappear. It's gone.
He can be in some amazing action sequences. He can test Batman, whether it's with a bunch of people in boats. Or it's with Harvey Dent / Rachel Dawes, and then Batman sort of fails the test in a sense. And all of those elements put together just makes for such a great villain. And no wonder why this guy won an Oscar for this performance. And rest in peace, Heath Ledger. You brought us this amazing villain. One of my favorite comic book villains from all time. One of my favorite villains of all time, period. And it's because of what Heath Ledger gave us. It's because this movie is so great. And even though he does completely undermine what's it called? Two-Face. But other than that, no flaws whatsoever. Absolutely fantastic villain. So fun, so great. He comes in at number 1. So share your ranking in the comments below if you'd include some of the other villains like Victor Zsasz from Batman Begins, Salvatore Maroni from The Dark Knight, or the Parademons from the Justice League or Zack Snyder's Justice League, and other things too. So tell me if you'd include those in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and comment down below. I need a break. See you guys next time. Adios.